It's time for Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And before we bring on today's guest, we are going to talk a little bit about the NHL draft, which is now less than 2 weeks away. And the Red Wings have the 4th overall pick. And as we've talked about a lot on this show, the draft really opens up at that 4th spot. So who are the Red Wings going to take? We're going to start profiling some of these prospects for you guys so you know who may be considered at that 4th pick. So here is the first two, courtesy of Ken Kal and Labatt Blue Light.
It's time for a Word on Woodward prospect profile presented by Labatt Blue Light. As we look ahead to who the Red Wings are picking 4th overall, we're going to look at two dynamic left shot centers out of the OHL in Marco Rossi and Cole Perfetti. Marco Rossi of the Ottawa 67s lit up the OHL with a league-leading 120 points last season in only 56 games. His 2.14 points per game average only trailed consensus number 1 overall pick Alexis Lafreniere in the entire OHL, and it was the highest points per game average over the last 13 seasons. As one of the older players in the draft, he has been noted as a strong two-way player who has some physicality in his game with a stocky 183-pound frame. The NHL Central Scouting Report on Rossi has him listed as having game-breaking ability, works hard in all 3 zones, and plays a very determined, aggressive game, while comparing him to Boston's Brad Marchand. If the Red Wings select him at 4th overall, he'd be the highest selected Austrian-born player in the NHL draft, ahead of former Red Wing Thomas Vanek. While Marco Rossi led the OHL in points, Cole Perfetti wasn't far behind, tallying 111 points for the Saginaw Spirit. This surprised nobody who watched Cole Perfetti start the 2019-20 campaign by scoring 8 goals in 5 games for Team Canada in the 2019 Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Physically, he's slightly undersized at 5'11", 177 pounds, but makes up for it in what NHL Central Scouting noted as he has incredible hockey IQ and feel for the game. Perfetti's hockey IQ is so high, TSN analyst Craig Button ranked it a 6 out of 5. The only other time he gave that score was to Connor McDavid for his skating ability. NHL Central Scouting added to their praise of Perfetti, saying he is a major threat on the ice who makes his teammates better. For a comparison to a current NHLer, Scouting News compares Mitch Marner to Perfetti at the same age. There is no doubt that these two talented centers will be taken high in this year's NHL draft. Whether either of these will be taken by Detroit is yet to be seen. Let us know which player you'd like the Wings to take in the 4th overall pick, and tune in to Red Wings social media for the latest information leading into the NHL draft on Tuesday, October 6th.
Now, guys, I am joined by senior content producer for the Detroit Red Wings, Dana Wakiji. Dana, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, it's always wonderful to be talking hockey with you, Daniella.
And
it's always nice to hear the dulcet tones of Ken Kal. I love it.
Yeah, right. Hey, you know when you start hearing Ken Kal's voice that hockey is getting close, the draft is right around the corner, and you heard Ken talk about it. Some say that Cole Perfetti has the highest hockey IQ in this draft class, but then you look at Marco Rossi, who is said to be the best two-way forward, the best two-way center, and he leads the OHL in scoring, in points, I should say. He leads the OHL in points. So when you look at these two prospects, Dana, who has the most upside for the Red Wings or the better fit for the Red Wings?
Well, the Red Wings, as we know, could use scoring of any kind. And so either one, I think, would be great. Now, the key is, do either of these or both of them project to be centers in the NHL? If they do, then they're more apt to fit in, because you can always move a center to a wing, but it's not as easy to move them from a wing to a center. A lot of people that I've read, a lot of the experts say that Perfetti might be more of a winger. And some people maybe would look at Rossi and say because he's only 5'9", that he should not be a center either. But there are good young, smallish centers in the league, so he could certainly do that. And I think it's kind of funny that I've seen the comparisons to Marchand, because Marchand has been a thorn in the wing side, as he has been in many teams' side. But they say that Rossi is like Marchand with the talent, but not with the antics. So that would be a good thing.
When you look at Cole Perfetti too, Dana, he spent the season playing for the Saginaw Spirit, which is very close to Detroit, making it easy for the Red Wings front office to get a good look at him. Does that give him any sort of edge compared to other prospects?
Well, it just means that they've seen him more. And both, Chris Osgood, who's a former wing, he has an interest in the Saginaw Spirit, and so does Jim Devellano, who's still an executive senior vice president with the Wings. So, they definitely have all seen him, which is great. Now, the more you see him, because then that way you can say, like, if you see a player 2 or 3 times and only one of those times he's good, you might downgrade him without seeing the bulk of his season. Whereas if you've seen him in person multiple times, it gives you sort of a bigger picture from which to draw. So I think that's the benefit for Perfetti.
Dana, the draft is getting close, and as we lead up to it here on the Word on Woodward, we will have more of these prospect profiles for you, and we'll make sure we talk about them in every Downtown Hockeytown. But Dana, I want to talk to you about some Red Wings news. The latest Red Wings prospects to be loaned to a European team are Jared Mckissack and Michael Rasmussen. The question that I have for you that seems interesting is that Jared Mckissack is expected to play the entire season in Finland, so the entire 2021 season, and then join the Grand Rapids Griffins late in the season and hopefully play in the playoffs with the Griffins. Why is that the case for him when the other prospects are planning to join the team for training camp?
Well, I think the goal for this season for Mckissack was because he's missed so much time. He had shoulder surgery and just got back in time to play for Team Canada's World Junior gold medal winning team last year, but he was not 100% by that point. I think they just want him to play as many games as possible because he's been so limited over the past couple of seasons. So right now, since over in Finland, they're already in preseason, they're playing some games. They want him to play as many games as he can. And the AHL, their target date to start is December 4th, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, that's just still a fluid thing. And if they don't start until the new year, at least then Mckissack will be getting all that time to play. And I don't think that the idea was for him to have a chance at making the Red Wings this season. Had he been healthy the last few seasons, perhaps. But since he hasn't been, then it's just better for him to develop as much as he can by playing as many games as he can.
And Dina, a little bit of a fun fact when it comes to Michael Rasmussen, he's playing in Austria, which is where Marco Rossi is from. And forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly, but it's Graz 99ers. Michael Rasmussen and Marco Rossi are both training with those teams right now. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe they could play together. You'd have the 5'9" Rossi with the 6'6" Michael Rasmussen. That would be great. Mutt and Jeff.
That'd be a great picture. I hope someone captures that. They should stand next to each other. That would be great.
Absolutely.
And Dana, I do want to ask you one question about the Stanley Cup Final that is currently going on. The Tampa Bay Lightning took a 2-1 lead last night in another dominant performance over the Dallas Stars. Steven Stamkos made his return. He had a goal on the night. What have you thought so far through 3 games of this series?
Well, what I've thought for Dallas is that I think it's a really poor strategy to keep taking penalties and putting the Tampa Bay Lightning on the power play because their power play is fantastic. Red Wings fans certainly know that. And even though Stamkos hasn't played up until last night and then didn't play pretty much after the first period, he sat on the bench but didn't play, they have so many guys who can score. We're talking about Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Andre Palat, Yanni Gourde. I mean, everybody on that team pretty much can score. So the Dallas Stars need to stop taking penalties to give themselves a better chance because otherwise I just think Tampa Bay could run away with it if they continue to go with that.
On Tuesday, we actually had Sean McIndoe on the show who writes Down Goes Brown for The Athletic, and he always writes an article that kind of tells other fan bases which team they should be rooting for in the Stanley Cup Finals. And he ultimately chose the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Red Wings, but we have the Jim Nill tie and all of that. So who are you rooting for?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I like John Cooper. He's really good friends with Jeff Blashill, as everybody knows. And they have some certainly really good players. But, I got to deal with Jim Nill on an almost daily basis when he was with the Wings. And anytime they'd have the draft, this was before I was with the Wings, and I would not go to the draft, I would call him right after the draft, and he'd go through every single pick with me on the phone. And he was just great and such a nice person. And then also, Tyler Seguin, when he played for the Plymouth Whalers, back when the Whalers played in Plymouth, he, of course, was scheduled to be one of the top picks, him and Taylor Hall, and it was sort of a debate as to who was going to go first. And so since Tyler Seguin was pretty much in town, I went over and did a story with him for Fox Sports Detroit. And so I always kind of root for him. I remember him telling me that I ask a lot of questions. So I was like, well, that is kind of my job.
Yeah, that means you're doing a really good job, Dana, doesn't it? You're getting all the answers.
That's right. That's what I'm trying to do.
And one last question for you, Dana. We're going to go back to the draft for a minute here. As I said, it's only a couple of weeks away. We only have a few more Word on Woodward shows. So I want to get your pick. We talked about Perfetti and Rossi, but you can go outside of those two. If you were Steve Yzerman and you were making that fourth pick, who are you taking?
I guess if it were me, because of everything I've seen and read about Jamie Drysdale, I would probably go with him because the one thing you truly need in the NHL right now is a puck-moving defenseman, a guy who can get the puck out of your end and onto the forward sticks as fast as humanly possible. And you see the impact that guys like Miro Heiskanen have had, and Cal McCarr, and Quinn Hughes. So I think that there's probably more talented forwards who can make an impact that will come after that, but it's harder to find those guys who project to be number one defensemen. Those are very difficult to come by.
We will take a closer look at Jamie Drysdale on Tuesday show for our prospects profile. And of course, you guys, we always do a draft preview show and it airs on Fox Sports Detroit. So you can catch that this Sunday. The first airing is at 1:30 p.m. ahead of the Tigers game. And then there will be another airing at 7 p.m. after the Tigers game. So check that out if you want to learn more about these prospects. And of course, we'll have all of that right here on the Word on Woodward. A big thank you to Dana Wakiji for joining us today. And of course, a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light.